Welcome back to the Sully Scoop, where three lifelong Husker bros dive in depth on all surrounding the new era of Husker football, where our cups never run dry of the Rule-Aid under head coach Matt Rule. Made by fans for fans with J-Sul, B-Sul, and T-Sul. We are back here on your favorite Cornhusker podcast. That's the Sully Scoop. You're here with J-Sul, B-Sul, and T-Sul. And joining us this week, a regular to the show, we're bringing back on BSchneid.
What's good, guys?
Hey, welcome back.
Well, it's good to be back. It's been a minute.
That's right.
That it has. We're looking forward to having you back to get your season predictions on how you've seen this year go. I know you were a little optimistic last year. We could bring up last year's stats once we get B-Sul on the call here.
But we gotta bring it back.
But we're looking forward to your predictions for this year as well.
Well, yeah, just a little off last year. Just a little off last year. You out of everybody on the given their predictions last year, you had the most optimistic outlook with an 11-1 season. You did pick the loss correct. You picked the loss to Michigan. So I'll give you that credit there. You did get that game right.
B-Sul's trying to rag on you real quick here. Why don't you remind us what you had them going? I believe you had them 11-1 as well. How are you?
No, I did not have 11-1. I also had a loss to Wisconsin pick. I had 10-2, J-Sul.
10-2 in the playoff and winning the Big Ten championship, and he's going to give you a hard time.
I did not have them in the playoff, but I did have them playing in the Big Ten championship. So
this is not going to be good because my grandpa and I do our podcast and we did record predictions, and I was way too early when I put it for our student radio, and I had us 11-1 this year, but
it could happen. I tried to reel it in a little bit this year, but the schedule looks really favorable again.
Well, I could see Nebraska football being 4-8 to 11-1, anywhere in between.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit, and obviously Nebraska's proven that they can win 4 games and lose 8 every year consistently for the past 7 years. So.
Wait, how long was Bo Pelini here? 7 years? Are we finally out of the mud? Is that what that means?
I hope so. Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it can get worse.
I did hear an interesting take here for you guys. Before we dive into your schedule predictions, they were talking that some of the biggest issues that some of the boosters had with Bo Pelini wasn't his demeanor, wasn't the fact that he couldn't win the big games. It was the way that we lost those games, and that even though we were winning 9 games, we were closer to winning 6 games than we were 11 games. And so that's where they were getting frustrated. And so it does beg the question, was the team just playing better under Pelini than they have under every other coach? That maybe they were, playing harder for a guy ready to run through a brick wall for them, as opposed to these coaches who want to put themselves first. That have we really been, a 4-win, 5-win football team since Bo took over?
I think you're 50% right there. But you got to look back at some of the players Pelini had on his teams.
Yeah.
Amir Abdullah being one of them. Nebraska hasn't had a playmaker to the caliber of Amir Abdullah since he was here on the offensive side of the ball. Don't get me wrong, you got for a running back position, and that's a key focal point for Nebraska football to win games, and it's been there since they've won games. So I think that was big. And then they had guys like Randy Gregory, Levante David, and
Sue. Don't forget
Sue. And Sue was a Callahan recruit.
Yeah.
Bo Pelini couldn't recruit, but Bo Pelini could coach. Guys like Will Compton became a pro because of it. You look at Will Compton now, and now he's just a chunk, funny guy on Barstool. But
no, you're not wrong. It's just one of those things that as you hear everybody's take, you're kind of like, I didn't look at it that way. But, I agree with you. I think Amir Abdullah was definitely a game changer that we had at the running back position. And ever since his kind of build at the running back position, they've been trying to fit in smaller guys back into that role. I mean, you had Terrell Newby. Newby wasn't a slouch, just couldn't get it done. You had Mo Washington, probably the most talented running back since Amir left, but then he got kicked off the team. You had Wandale, who never should have been playing running back, but it was just a matter of trying to get the playmaker the ball. So I think there's been a lot of offensive talent, and it just really makes you wonder, is it underperforming players, or is it, they don't have a coach who's striking fire in these guys?
I think
Well,
it's
development.
more about the personnel you got and the coaching that around it and the play calling that they were making. I mean, back in Bo Pelini's era, he had, Taylor Martinez who was out there, and they would just let him do his thing and run around. He was the fastest guy in the field every time he took the field, and they let him do that. When Adrian Martinez got here under Scott Frost, they told him, sit in the pocket, try to let stuff develop, especially after he got hurt his first year against Colorado. However, and then you have Mike Riley, and he never had the same quarterback for years, except for Tommy Armstrong, which again, Adrian and Tommy doing stuff now, winning championships. I get it. However, with the personnel they had in that team, they're not the best pass throwers out there. And they should have been looking to run the ball downhill more, but you need an offensive line to do that. And I feel like that is what has really fallen off the track since Bo Pelini left, has been the offensive line.
And the defense. That's what I would say. Up until last year, the defense looked great, but they still don't get the takeaways. I mean, Bo Pelini, he always had a defense that would take the ball away, whether it was interceptions or strip sacks or fumbles or whatever. There were guys that were getting the ball back. Like you just think of like
T-Cell,
guys.
Bo Pelini also had defenses that were giving up 70 points to Wisconsin.
But so that's the thing, BSchneid. He would get out game planned in some games against better coaches, but ultimately when the game was on the line, Bo Pelini knew how to close it out.
Now, are you saying that Brett Bielema is a better coach than Bo Pelini?
I'm saying he game planned smarter than him because he knew Bo Pelini, the defense.
You said he got out coached by better coaches.
I would say
Hey.
based on their track record, then yes.
Yeah, I mean Bielema, what he won the Big Ten, 3 years in a row. Bo Pelini didn't win the Big
No,
Ten.
according to J-Cell, he ran the Big 12 or the Big 10.
He did run the Big Ten. He was in the Rose Bowl for 4 straight years.
3.
With a lot of NFL players.
Right.
I mean, what's Brett Bielema done in Illinois?
Almost took down Michigan if it wasn't for those refs.
Yeah, and it's gonna be the what is he, Scott Frost 2.0? Scott Frost was the same thing. I almost took down Michigan if it wasn't for those damn refs.
Well, I mean, Michigan knew their plays, so
yeah, and the refs weren't gonna let it happen. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, that was their ticket to get into the championship. Obviously, everything's about money, so still surprised when some calls start going some ways. But before we get into going into the schedule, BSchneid, are you're writing out there? Where can people find your content you're putting out?
yeah, this fall I'm pretty excited. Sounds like I've been in touch with Adam Carricker with his website. I'm going to be starting the 1st of August about or once a week I'll be writing an article going about discussing the football games, a little bit of volleyball, and then previewing each other game, and then I plan on carrying on into the winter doing some basketball stuff. So really excited about that. Being a sports media major, just another great opportunity for myself. So it's exciting and very good opportunity once again.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great opportunity there for you. And I know when we first, got in contact and got you on the show, I know that's, something you've been, I guess, passionate about is the Huskers. Obviously, we're all Husker fans, but being a writer, so I, personally, I look forward to reading up on you on Adam Carricker's website over there, especially for the football season. It's really what we care about here. But
yeah, I appreciate it.
Sorry to cut you off there, B. So what'd you have?
Well, I was going to ask because everybody's chiming in, especially in the off season. They're looking to do coaching trackers and stuff like that. Does anybody happen to know where Connor Stallions fell? Where he got a job?
He's still in Michigan.
I'm honestly curious because
he's a full-time Michigan guy.
I thought he took the fall for Harbaugh and didn't go back.
Nah, dude, it's blood money.
He's not on Michigan's campus because they don't need him there. He's going to everyone else's campus. They're paying that man for life.
He's the best scout anyone's ever had. However, he does not have the same type of relevance to the game anymore with everyone going to the helmet headsets for the players. Now they can communicate through the headsets from the coach to the player. Obviously, it's going to be more of a pro style game. And I think it takes away from people being able to steal your signs. If they're still able to steal your signs, either they got some great technology and they're listening to your radio calls, or you're just an idiot and not changing the formations and everything that goes around with it.
J-Saw, he might just intercept the call. All of a sudden, Ohio State's quarterback is gonna be like, "Hey, this is Connor. Ryan Day. Yeah, run up the middle."
I don't see that happening there, T-Sol. I think they would figure that one out.
Well, Nebraska, did you guys see they're going to be on the West End now?
Oh,
so that was one of Rule's big things and it makes sense because being on the east side, the opposing team can see their signals that you're holding up.
yeah.
So he's like, it's a competitive advantage for the away team, actually, because the guys up in the press box can be like, oh, the Aflac duck means option right after 2 times.
Yeah.
So
no, that makes a lot of sense. It's a smart move on his part. And, it doesn't surprise me just the more and more that we get out of camp ever since Rules even stepped on campus there. I mean, the guy knows the game, knows how to correct mistakes that are out there. And so it's not surprising that he's making the move after year 1. It would probably be a little hard to do midway through the season.
But one thing I do want to point out there, I am off the Fire Rule train at the moment. I will say at the moment. He may be winning these off seasons. He may be the off-season national champ 2 years back to back. I mean, once you get Dylan Raiola, you're an off-season national champ forever. However, you got to win games during the season, and that's really what matters. If you can't win during the season, nothing else matters.
J-Saw, you have us going 6-6,
yeah.
and you're telling me you're not screaming for him to be fired.
That is an improvement from last year.
On our way to 6-6.
I am out here just asking for a bowl game, because it gets you 17 more practices and let your players develop. We're looking for young players to come in and develop. Making a bowl game this year, a bowl game is going to be a huge step forward, especially with a freshman quarterback like Dylan Raiola, and then you have other young, talented wide receivers that are going to be working in there with them.
J-Saw, a bowl game at this point is expectation. We should be bowl eligible before we hit Ohio State.
He's got bowl game expectations. We haven't gone bowling in 7 years. We haven't gone bowling in 7 years.
Then we may as well go independent.
By choice.
By
choice. We turned it down in 2020, J-Saw.
Yeah, may as well start, doing what Notre Dame does.
We turned down a bowl at 3-5. But that
still turned it down.
If Scott Frost didn't turn down that bowl game, he might still be here. You never know.
Scott Frost was an offensive guru.
They rode him to the ground with that. You never made a bowl game, but if he took it at 3-5, they couldn't say that.
That is a very good point. But Scott Frost was an offensive guru. He just
It's not a good point. He would have been let go after the Georgia Southern game. That didn't matter.
Scott Frost was an offensive guru. Yes, but no in the Big Ten. Did Scott Frost ever really light up the scoreboard in the Big Ten other than this first year? And then in 2021, he scored 56 on Northwestern, but really the defense is like that Oregon spread offense did not work. So Scott Frost, I think, to be fair, Scott Frost is a great offensive coordinator for the American, the Big 12, Pac-12 when they had that. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody had a good take about Adrian Martinez's kind of failure at Nebraska, and then he went to Kansas State and kind of became a superstar. And it was interesting because he was saying Scott Frost probably coached him to play like he did. Because Scott Frost was a tough son of a gun that would run people over. And Martinez, I mean, he's a great athlete.
He was more elusive than Scott was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he was tough, but he was not the strength-wise that Frost ever was. No. And, I mean, you're seeing it now at the UFL. I mean, Martinez was the best player out there this year. And now he's going to be signed by a professional football team. So I I think it all went down to Scott Frost, the player development and his whole staff, really.
Do you
But
think it comes to the talent or the talent level they were bringing in, not only the recruiting, but if you look at the difference compared to like an Oregon, when they're coming in, they're still going to run the Oregon Pac-12 offense. Do you think they're going to have to change as much as Scott Frost?
Yes,
oh,
No,
it's interesting.
no.
That's an interesting take
they're
because
gonna have to change.
I
it's an
think they're
interesting
getting
take
better personnel.
because you're going to have 4 teams, and every year USC and UCLA are going to play each other, and they're going to probably try to schedule Oregon and not keep that 4 teams kind of playing each other
Yeah.
every year. So that's what's going to be really interesting to see, because the time of year will be crucial. And then team like Michigan flying out to Southern Cal in November. I mean, it's going to be 70 degrees at kickoff, even if they kick off at 8 o'clock at night. That's what's going to be really. I really am. I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah. I don't think Oregon's going to have to change everything the way Scott Frost had to or chose not to. You got to remember too, when Oregon's coming in here, they're coming in with their offense intact, with their defense intact. They're going to have to make adjustments to the Big Ten game, but it's not a coach coming into a situation saying you're going to adapt to me. And he doesn't necessarily have all the personnel that he wants, and there's not that continuity there. Whereas Oregon's got that. Daniel Lanning's a hell of a coach, and I have zero doubts that they're going to come in and have a very successful first year in the Big Ten.
Tiesel's got a good point though, and it really has to go on what are they going to do with the rule changes? Because with the NFL, they have made it the rule changes they passed. They banned the hip drop tackle, and they have made it. Tom Brady even said it. They have made it so it is all for the offense. And Michigan proved in the championship game that defense won them that championship, hands down. And I hope that they don't do it to the college game. They already got the professional style with paying players and all this other stuff, but they need to keep it so they're playing actual football. The integrity of the game's kind of at risk.
I agree with that. I think the rule changes are definitely going to impact it there. But for example here, and I'm gonna throw it back. I'm gonna use Nebraska when they came in. Bo Pelini brought the team into the Big Ten. You had that continuity there. You had a coach who had a team for a couple of years. I mean, we came into the Big Ten and he went 9-3 and lost the bowl game, finished 9-4. And it wasn't like you were beating up on bad Big Ten teams at that time of year. You beat number 12 Penn State, number 11 Michigan State. You lost to Wisconsin in the first road Big Ten game. That was horrible. That was a bad game. You lost to Michigan in the Big House again, but Bo Pelini was able to kind of steer the ship in the right direction that first year, and that's how I think it's going to go for Daniel Lanning. It's going to be it's going to be an adjustment for both sides of the ball, offense and defensive for Oregon, but it's also the Big Ten teams are going to have to adapt a little bit to what Oregon can do as well.
So is that an Oregon hat I see in the background there? You flying the Ducks out there?
Well, T-So, we'll get to that Oregon hat that I may or may not be stashing over here once BSchneid gets to his Big Ten championship predictions as well. But why don't we jump into the schedule here? BSchneid, how do you see that first game going? UTEP at Nebraska.
Penciling a win. UTEP, I think they went 3-9 last year. They have a brand new head coach coming in, and they have 75% around of a roster overhaul. So this is going to be the opener that Nebraska's needed for the past couple of years. So we should go in there and roll them. The defense is going to go in there and they're going to dominate. UTEP's going to struggle moving the football against Nebraska. Nebraska's going to have a top 5, not in the Big Ten, top 5 defense in college football this year. It's going to be the best defense they put on the field since Ndamukong and Suh was at Nebraska. And last year was they're going to be tough. And I'd put Nebraska's defense up against any Big Ten offense and be confident in them. So we'll roll them. Roll. And Rayola's going to get comfortable. It's going to be a tune-up game for Colorado.
Yes.
That Rule already knows that, and I think the whole team knows. But they got to be careful not to get sleepy because they'll still beat them if they're sleepy. But it's a tune-up game. They're going to play it really simple. It's going to be Rayola's first game as quarterback. Harburg might play a little bit of tight end in this game, but they're going to save that, I believe, for the Colorado game. So it's going to be a tune-up, hands down. A lot of carries. A lot of carries for Emmett Johnson, Irvin if he's healthy, Dowdell. But yeah, go ahead, Jay Soul. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna ask you right here: if Raiola comes out and struggles first half, and say it's a 7-point game, tie game, do you look to make the switch to Harburg game 1? Just to close out the game.
I think you have to.
Absolutely. I kind of look at this UTEP game. First time since 2019, we're really playing a tune-up game to start the season. It really begs the question here, JSL. If Raiola comes out, struggles game 1, how many people do you turn to? Because I could see them giving Harburg or even Kalen a little game action towards the end of the game, because this game shouldn't be close, that you give them a little bit of time, some game action, see how they're doing. I full-heartedly expect Kalen to redshirt this year.
Yeah,
but he'll still get his 4 games, 4 pieces of game work. But do you trot Harburg out a little bit to keep his arm active, keep him, ingrained in the offense in case you do need to make that change later on?
Not at all. Harburg is out of my offense completely. I told you, if you guys think he's our second option, I'm looking on campus already. He's not my second option.
He's out of your offense completely. You wouldn't. He's one of the best athletes on the team. You would not put him on the field.
I might look at him as like maybe a wide receiver or a trick play here or there, but I'm not looking to roll him out as a quarterback. He's just not a quarterback for me.
You could put him.
Here's the thing.
No,
you guys
could bring him in the red zone.
You're talking if Raiola struggles against UTEP. If Raiola struggles against UTEP, maybe he's not the 5-star guy we thought he was. He's not going to struggle at all. He's going to light him up, and he's going to scare the rest of the
I'm saying even if it's not a struggle, and we are blowing UTEP out,
you're going to keep him in there and keep
you're going to pull him out.
No, I'm going to keep him in there and keep blowing him out. Let's score 100 points on these
You don't risk injury in a game that's
Colorado
already over.
Shaking their boots when they got to come into town the next week. That's what
Colorado's already trying to figure out a way to get out of this game. It doesn't matter if Raiola plays all 4 quarters.
What's the point margin when you take Raiola out, Bill?
I would say if you're headed into somewhere in the second half, if you're up 4 scores, I think you pull them out.
Okay, that's understandable.
3 scores, even 3 scores in the 4th quarter. You get to that point and you're playing with fire to leave a guy in there who your season's going to ride on.
Yeah,
if the game is away,
see him keeping him in is confidence.
Yeah,
but you have a great point there.
I mean, if Raiola comes out and shows that he can just manhandle UTEP, his confidence is already going to be growing at that point. And you basically tell him, "Hey, kid, you did your job. Rest up. Next week's going to be a dogfight." And just even if next week isn't a dogfight, you just tell him that again. You're like, "Hey, listen, you did a great job this week. We're going to pull you here. We're going to turn to the other guys. We'll get you back in if we need you, but game's over. We don't want to lose you." Because realistically, you should be 7-0 heading into Ohio State.
If you're up 3 to 4 scores going into half, especially, I think you give Raiola maybe a nod on the first 2 drives, but after that, game's pretty much over. You're going to be handing the ball off for the majority of it at that point. You're really just risking injury. I agree with you there on that, Biso.
I don't. I'm keeping him in there. I'm rolling him out there till there's 2 minutes left in the 4th. We'll let Harburg come out there and take the final knee. He's lighting up the scoreboard on these guys.
See,
Oh,
you're
man.
playing with fire, just like Bissell said. I mean, why are you going to keep him out
Playing
there?
with fire. You guys are talking like we won this game. I mean, if you're up by 3 scores in the third quarter and you bench him, and then next thing you know, UTEP scores twice, or say we turn it over, they score, and then we turn it over again. Now you're panicked trying to run it back out there. And
First off, if it's only a 3-score game in the third quarter,
you
there's
just
bigger
said
issues
you
there.
bench him.
I said
game in the third quarter.
if three scores in the fourth, I said 3 to 4 in the third quarter, score wise, and because again, you're going to be handing the ball off at that point. You're already up. You're going to be controlling the clock. You're going to try and run it down as much as you can. There is no reason to leave him out there to risk injury, and it's not like UTEP is going to come out and be this high flying offense that's going to score 3 times in 10 minutes.
And you don't
Well,
think our defensive starters or guys on offense around him aren't going to be getting taken out? They're going to be wanting to get other guys looks and get them, game ready, game experience, especially for the
Too
young
bad.
guys. At this
We
point.
got a whole
We might
season.
need them later in the season.
I need
I'd rather
my
give 'em-
starters
I'd rather
to
get him
be
some reps
ready for the season.
against UTEP than having them go out against Ohio State for the first time ever.
Yeah, they're going to treat this UTEP game and the Northern Iowa game. They're going to treat these like spring game practices here. It's going to be going to be.
You're
going to get out there.
Be careful. Georgia Southern.
I get that.
Oh,
I
be
think
careful.
it's a different regime though. It's a very different regime. And the way I look at it here is they're going to take them serious enough to run out the starters, but you're going to treat that second half when you are in control in a way of getting the rest of your guys some game reps and get them ready for the Big Ten play.
At that point, you just run the ball and run the clock, but you keep the starters out there. I mean, you're talking about, if we risk injury, risk the season. Look, guys, we haven't made a bowl game in 6 or 7 years, whatever the heck it is now. We're not risking anything with injuries. We haven't earned anything yet. Let's go out there and earn it.
T-Sol, okay. Halftime score is 48-6. And then midway through the third, it gets up to 66, let's say, to 9. Are you keeping Rayola in at that point?
He might be the only guy I'm keeping in at that point.
That doesn't make much sense, though.
Listen,
He's
if we
got to learn to
score,
play everybody on the team.
Just let it be known you agreed with him earlier on in this
No,
podcast.
I did. I agreed to keep him in, but if it gets out of hand, that's why I asked Bissell, what's the score margin?
Yeah.
Because if we're only up 14 or 20 points in the second half, no, you're keeping in your starters. But if it gets out of hand, I think I don't. The first game, I think Nebraska could put up 42 to 49 points, but
right.
The thing is your defense is so good, you're not going to have to worry about in a shootout.
So what we're looking at, I mean, I'm just realistically at halftime, you're thinking Nebraska probably scores on at least 4 possessions, maybe a 5th, depending on when they start deciding that they really want to get by halftime.
Clearly been watching a different team the last.
No, and against UTEP, I absolutely expect us to score.
When's the last time we had 35 points by half? Maybe Iowa when we had Palmer out there. We don't have Palmer out there.
I'll go back and I'll pull some scores here, but it would not surprise me if by halftime this score is 35-7. It's UTEP. This isn't a team that's going to come out here and be able to stop our offense. They aren't going to be able to really hold their own against our defense either. I'll give them, we probably make a mistake in coverage. We've got some new guys on this 3-3-5 defense that they maybe get a score going down the field, and it may not even be a touchdown. Maybe it's 35-3. But if you come out in the second half, and again, like J-Cell said, you're up, you get the ball, they get the ball, whatever it is, and let's say you score with Rayola your first drive of the second half, it's now 42-7 or 42-3. At that point, they don't stand a chance. They're not coming back anyway. You might as well see, hey, let's get Harbergen. Let's see how he's adapted with this offense now. Keep him ready to go in case you do need to turn to him later in the season. Get Kalen some looks there. You've got a deep wide receiver room, a very deep running back room that you want to get these guys in. You want them game experience. You want them ready to go, and you want everybody as fresh as they can by the time Big Ten play comes.
Well, I just pulled up something because I knew they were at the bottom half of the FBS. But yeah, they're right now going in this year. They're 122nd out of what, the 133 teams or
32,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. So if we're not, I agree with you, Beasel. If we're not up 28-7 at halftime, then
Yeah.
we didn't play a good half. We'll be up at halftime, but that means that we were screwing around in the first half and we had some struggles from Raiola and stuff. We should be up, and that's why I'm saying you play Raiola through midway through the third and get a couple more scores, and then you bring in a Harburg or something. But I do believe Harburg is going to be Harburg. If they're smart, they're going to use Harburg like Luke McCaffrey should have been used.
Absolutely. And even the way that Florida used Tebow his freshman year is kind of where I expect Harburg to do. That the kid, if you bring him in on some goal line packages, you use him as a flank in the tight end route. He can catch. He's an athlete. He can run people over. He's a big enough guy that I think you can be creative with him. And I think that'll bode well for this offense, especially if they can keep most of that under wraps and just get a couple plays in. And they're like, oh, he's out there for like one or two, like even if he's out there 6 plays and you go to him once or twice, teams are going to key in and they're going to then double focus on him or pay more attention to him. That you can score on that, especially when they think he's out there just as a decoy.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble here, B-Cell, but Harburg is nothing like Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow did nothing but win in college. And you're talking about rolling Harburg out for 6 plays. 5 of those are going to be turnovers. And you're going to be regretting that.
Harburg did something, though, that Adrian Martinez never did, and that's have a winning record as a starting quarterback.
Fair enough. But you look at who he's playing. He was playing teams like this UTEP. He wasn't rolling out against Michigan and Ohio State and Wisconsin. He was beating up on Illinois and
But Martinez lost those games. Martinez threw 4 picks against Purdue and Lincoln.
True.
So
yeah,
Harburg, one thing I will respect about Harburg is he found a way to maintain a game to put us in position to win a game.
Yes. He was not the reason that we lost the games he was in.
He's the reason we lost to Maryland last year. And don't tell me otherwise.
What? How?
He's just played terrible.
Well, he only played the first quarter.
And he floated 2 picks in the first quarter.
He threw 1 and then
it was called back on a flag and then he threw it again.
Yeah, I guess you're right with that. But we lost the Maryland game because of coaching.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of coaching and playing ultimately when it comes down to every game.
Oh, and you got to factor in, you're saying 2 turnovers second half if another quarterback comes in. Jeff Sims is no longer on the roster.
Thank God.
And neither is Chubba Purdy, which I wish Chubba would have stayed.
Yeah.
But Jeff Sims is no longer on the roster. And another thing, at the satellite camps Nebraska just had, the NAIA Player of the Year from Northwestern College in Iowa, he's a quarterback. He is a grad transfer, but he went to the camp. So I think he's going to come in as a walk-on. But that's another dude that, if you're NAIA Player of the Year, obviously that's in between the Division II, Division III range, but still, that you're a good, solid quarterback. So that's another guy they can add in on the roster. So they're going to have 3 or 4 guys that could play. Now, the question is, when are you going to need them? Because statistically, Raiola is probably going to miss a game due to a concussion, sprained ankle. Teddy misses a block and Raiola gets broken ribs on the edge.
Go down the whole line. It's not just going to be Teddy missing a block.
I was hypothetical right there.
Or he robs a vape store.
Oh, no. Hopefully the rules told him not to do that after Mr. Gilbert.
He would have been a stud too.
I'm with you there, Bobby, or BSchneid. And I'll tell you what, I think just the role of having a solid backup quarterback in college football doesn't really exist anymore. Just with the transfer portal and with the NIL, a lot of these guys like Chubba Purdy, he would have been a solid backup. And instead, why are you looking like that, Diesel? He transfers out, and
good riddance. He wasn't a solid, like, again, we're talking how solid a backup quarterback was he? He wasn't great. I still, and you guys were making fun of me the other day for it. I still think Jeff Sims is 10 times as talented as Chubba Purdy. I think he's a better quarterback than Chubba Purdy. Jeff Sims can be a little careless with the ball. I'll give you that. Chubba Purdy keeps getting these opportunities because of what his brother's doing.
a little
Chubba's
careless
not
with the
that good a
ball.
quarterback.
That
A
is the
little-
craziest take I've heard. Wow.
What?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No.
I would try Jeff Sims out there over Chubba Purdy.
No.
Yeah.
You lose
Are you-
every time.
We and Nebraskans should have known better, and so should the coaching staff. But looking at Jeff Sims' stats, what he had at Georgia Tech, he was 50-50 turnover to or touchdown to interception.
Yeah.
Chubba Purdy at least could get the offense in a chance to win the game. And yeah, he threw the interception that cost us the game against Maryland. But remember, your boy Jeff Sims had, what was it, two interceptions and a fumble in the fourth. Jeff Sims is a lost cause.
But-
There's no way I'd trot Jeff Sims out.
I'm not saying that Jeff Sims would be my quarterback of choice, and I don't want anybody to take that from this. I'm just
Too
telling
late.
you, when you compare the two of them, I'm saying that like, if you have two options and your options are Chubba Purdy or Jeff Sims, I would take Jeff Sims because you've got a chance that you can actually, if you can get him to play to his potential, his ceiling is a lot higher than Chubba Purdy. And everybody who's like, when you look at Chubba Purdy mostly was coming in as that guy later in the game when it was out of hand to kind of spark the offense and do that. Defense didn't prep for him.
What about Wisconsin and Iowa?
For Chubba?
Yeah, I mean, he started both those games.
And I thought he played decent, but again, I don't think Chubba was the best quarterback on the roster last year. I would have still trotted out, and I know T-Cell saying he's not part of the offense, but there's a reason Harburg's still around. Harburg was the best
no one
quarterback that we
wanted him.
had option last year.
Well, you're
No,
working
I-
back
Harburg
on your
and
word. You were
Purdy
just
were able to
arguing about.
transfer.
You were just taking and arguing Jeff Sims over Chubba Purdy, and now you're bringing Harburg back into contention. This has nothing to do with Harburg over there.
I am telling you that the ceiling for the two guys, if you take raw talent and raw ability, if Jeff Sims goes into the right situation, the guy has the skill set to be
To
a
turn the
stellar
ball over.
quarterback.
Well, Chubba was a better runner on the field for Nebraska last year than Jeff ever was. Chubba had a lot of long runs.
He had a lot of long runs, but I think it was a lot of guys took bad angles. When you look back at the defensive side, nobody expected him to have his the quick ability.
No
like if you
credit
look
for
at
Chubba. He
Get it away.
didn't earn
If you-
anything.
if you look at the angle of pursuit that those guys were taking, they were taking it like Chubba was not as quick as he was.
Are you saying those guys were point shaving out there, Beasel? Is that what you're saying?
They might have been.
There's
Every
a reason
pass-
that Brock Purdy is an MVP caliber quarterback, and Chubba has the same DNA. Chubba has talent to be a pro.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this either because I think Brock Purdy's the most overrated quarterback out there right now. Brock Purdy fell into such a good situation. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a hell of a coach, hell of an offensive guy, and literally draws up plays to put people where you need to be. And Brock Purdy falls into this, a guy who literally can throw the ball, basically does the Tom Brady thing, throw it 15 yards and just let your guys do what they need to. But you fell into a place that has the best running back in football, one of the top 3 tight ends in all of football, and then you've got 2 wide receivers who basically are running backs who just catch screen passes. And everybody says that he's the reason they're winning. He's like the 5th best player on that offense.
He's still a best player.
There's 11 guys and 5 of them are linemen.
So
Well,
you're saying
the
he's
Huskers
their best
could
skill
use him.
player.
Who's the Niners' best skill player?
Well, you just said that there's 11 guys and 5 of them are linemen. So you're saying he's like the 5th best player
Like
on the
fifth
offense.
best, sorry, well, like fifth best skill position player on the offense.
He's got weapons, but he still takes a lot to win like he does at the professional level.
I'm not taking away from making it to the pros or anything like that. All I'm saying is if I had to complete, 10 passes a game for a total of 30 yards and just let my guys go crazy with it, I could probably do that.
Here's what I'll relate to you for B-Saw. I would say he's like the early days of Kirk Cousins. And I'll tell you this, a lot of people would kill to have Kirk Cousins on their team. But is Kirk Cousins going to go out there light you up for 400 yards? No. Is he going to be the reason why the team
That
wins
is
in the
a
playoffs?
terrible take. Kirk Cousins
No.
is twice the quarterback that Brock Purdy is.
I would
Yeah, and the
argue
Falcons-
against that. They're the
and the
same person.
The Falcons want him so bad they drafted another quarterback. Now,
They paid a lot of money for him.
let's get into this Colorado at Nebraska. We got a night game in Lincoln there, BSchneid.
This game is the build-up's already amazing. This game is gonna be one of the best atmospheres the Memorial Stadium's had in 15 years. It's gonna be similar
Maybe
to
ever. I mean, maybe ever.
It's gonna be similar to the Miami game, in 14. I'm just waiting to see you'll see a couple people wearing those prime Nike sweatshirts and they'll be talking trash. But here's the thing. So Colorado opens up against North Dakota State, which is no slouch, and they've kind of fallen off with the NIL, with the FCS all kind of as a whole has fallen off with the NIL. So, I think they open up on a Thursday night. So I'll obviously be watching that game pretty closely. And there's no excuse for Nebraska not to win this game. Colorado, once again, has a big overhaul of a roster. Don't get me wrong, their quarterback, Deion's son, can throw the football pretty well. And Travis Hunter is an amazing athlete. But other than that, then they got some decent transfers, but it's all plug and play there. And you're in Memorial Stadium. The crowd is going to be as loud possibly as it's ever been because of just the build-up, and Nebraska hasn't beat Colorado the past 3 times. But I think what it's gonna be, it's gonna be really chippy. There's probably gonna be some unsportsmanlikes on both ways. And at halftime, I think it's gonna be a close game. I could see it being one of those. In Colorado might jump out and get a touchdown on the first drive, but it's gonna wake up the black shirts. And that's the key. Guys like Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher, you don't think they want to knock that dude on his butt. I mean, our defense is going to get after him. They don't have an offensive line. We got good defensive backs. So Colorado's offense, in a way, is kind of screwed because we got one of the best defensive backs in Tommy Hill in the Big Ten and a lot of veteran guys there too. Buford's going to be fully healthy. So Nebraska's got the defense there. You got Isaac Gifford in the nickel. So Colorado's going to have to rely on some tricks and stuff like that. But I see at halftime it being a close game because Rayola's going to come in, and the first week, no noise really. It's going to be really built up, and he's going to be nervous, but you're playing UTEP. Now you're playing a Power 5 team, all the Deion Sanders noise. So I see him possibly struggling in the first half, but it's going to be around a tie ball game at halftime. But then this is where the blue-collar Nebraska football is going to win because our offensive line is finally, you saw last year, improvements in guys like Bryce Benhart. They're going to wear down Colorado's defensive line, and Colorado's offensive line is non-existent. So our defensive line is going to take over the game. I think we pull away for a 3+ score victory and shut up the Deion Prime Sanders.
I agree with you. I think the most important thing here for Nebraska is Raiola, like you said, managing the moment that he's in, trying to control the narrative the best that he can going into this game. It's going to be his first Power 5 game. I'm just hoping that the coaching staff doesn't put him in a bad situation the first couple drives. Let him hand the ball off. Let's see exactly, it's going to be chippy. Let's see how many of these personal fouls we can get on the first drive by having, Gabe Ervin run the ball, having Dante Dowell run the ball. take some of those shots, run people over, set the tone in the trenches instead of coming out and throwing 3 passes to start the game and trying to take a deep shot. You know, that's what Colorado's going to do. They're going to come out, they're going to try to throw the ball around, they're going to try and spread you out and hit a couple big plays. And I think as the game goes on, if we can control the tempo by running the ball and then take our deep shots, do some play action, hit Jalen Lloyd on a deep crossing route, I think if you let Raiola kind of manage the moment there, I think he'll be successful. And I think Nebraska should win easy. But like you said, it'll come with a second half runaway. I think it's going to be close at half.
Yeah, and the atmosphere, night game in Memorial Stadium for this is going to be insane because you think about how Colorado treated them last year with the media, with Dion talking about the disrespect or lack thereof, that whatever they were talking about, all that BS, and then they go do the same thing the next week to Colorado State. So like the fact of all the buildup there, Nebraska's been licking their chops for the past year. And so this UTEP game, they're going to punch UTEP in the mouth because they're just prepping for Colorado. And I think they're going to come out swinging right away against Colorado.
Hey, Beasel, I was so you were saying Irvin and Dowdell. So you think those will be the top 2 backs? I was curious because I personally see Emmett Johnson being it's all going to be by committee, especially nowadays in college football. But I think Emmett Johnson's going to be our highlight running back. I really do.
I agree. I like Emmett Johnson too. I think against Colorado though, I think they're going to use and I'm not trying to take away from Emmett Johnson. He's definitely of the 3 the smaller stature guy. I think against this Colorado team, they're going to try and use the bigger backs early on to really set the tone. And that'll free up Emmett Johnson, assuming Ramir's kind of healthy by then. All the reports keep saying that he's finally getting back to feeling like himself. But if Emmett Johnson and Ramir Johnson are kind of your guys that you're bringing in on third down or at the tail end of a drive after Dante, really makes the front line for Colorado feel it, or Gabe Ervin running a couple guys over and really sets the tone. I think that's where Emmett Johnson's going to have his success in this game. I think against a lot of the Big Ten teams, I think the line will be better suited by then. And I think by the end of it, Emmett Johnson will be the top running back. But I think against Colorado this early in the season, I think they're going to use the bigger bodies there.
No, I mean, that's a great point. I mean,
I was going to say nothing against Emmett Johnson. I think he's a very skilled runner. I just think stature-wise, they're going to go for the bigger guys to try and set the tone early in this game with how chippy it's going to be.
No, I mean, it's a great point, and I very well could see them doing that.
For me, I plug in, as long as he's healthy, I plug in Irvin. As long as he's healthy. I mean, the last 2 seasons he's gotten injured after 1 game, so he stays healthy. He's my guy.
Dante Dowdle is going to be has the best talent in our running back room by far. He's the fastest one. He's coming from Oregon. How could you not like him?
Fastest?
Because we haven't seen him yet, so we don't know what he can do.
He's not the fastest, but he's talented.
Yeah.
Who are you going to put up against him? Ramir Johnson?
I put Ramir and Emmett Johnson against Dowdle. You got to realize in the spring game, Dowdle's touchdown, he about got chased down by a walk-on.
Yeah,
he was also injured at that point, but I think he's the best running back in our running back room at this
all-purpose back, possibly.
But you haven't seen
third down back. I think is still Ramir Johnson. Best third down back.
Third down back? Maybe on a passing down.
They need to move Ramir to a slot back, scat back.
Yeah.
Like they need to use Ramir Johnson like Wandale Robinson should have been used.
Yeah, more of a get a screenplay, get him the ball on the outside because he does have some speed when he gets out there, but
you saw it against Michigan in 2021.
Yeah, he just can't run through guys like Emmett Johnson could or Gabe Ervin especially. Which it'll be interesting if Gabe Ervin is healthy finally, but
if he could just stay healthy past 1 game, If you could get 6 games out of him, you'd be happy.
Yeah. You'd prefer those to be the last 6 games of the season, but yes,
True,
you
very
want to
true.
you want Gabe to be healthy. So as of right now, we've all got the first 2 games as wins. BSchneid, how do you feel about Northern Iowa coming to town?
It's actually a Troy Daniel reunion. That's his alma mater. But this is going to be a party night for Lincoln, Nebraska. 7 o'clock or 6:30 kickoff. So pencil in a win there. So I got us 3-0 rolling into the Friday night. 400 consecutive sellout against Illinois.
And this is where it gets interesting. Going across the panel here, BSchneid, you're the fifth guy giving picks here right now. For Illinois, everybody had us 3-0 going into it. So far, there is 1 loss on the panel against Illinois. Are you going to make it 2 losses?
No. I think Illinois is going to be the lower half of the Big Ten or the bottom of the Big Ten. Bielema has it. He's been there so long and they haven't really done much. So no, this will be another game. I mean, Nebraska's rolling. We're 4-0. Got that taste of a bowl game getting closer. So no, it'll be a cool atmosphere game. It'll be a Big Ten game, but Nebraska's going to pull away in the second half.
I agree with that. I think the interesting thing to note here, even with the Big Ten realigning so that to make the championship game, you have to be one of the top 2 teams overall. When you look at these first couple games for Nebraska, who jumps out as the hardest opponent? Is it Colorado? Is it Illinois? Are we talking, is it Rutgers under Greg Schiano? Like, where do we turn that's going to be the toughest game before we get to Ohio State?
Colorado or Rutgers.
Yeah.
We'll know after this. Once we get to after the Illinois game, which team's going to be tougher. Because Rutgers, I think Rutgers actually is a solid football team.
They will have the best defense we're going to go against. That is Rutgers. But I think Illinois is going to have the best rushing game we're going to go against, especially behind their offensive line. And then you look at Colorado, they just have they're going to have the fastest guys we're going to be playing all year until we play Ohio State. And then there's not going to be anyone else that has that type of speed. Maybe USC, but I still don't think they're keeping up with Travis Hunter out there.
Jay, so the only rushing Illinois is going to do is back to the bus to go home. That's all they're going to be doing.
Brett Bielema has had the Huskers number for a while there, T-Saw.
Not last year.
Now,
last year we weren't that good of a football team.
Are we 1-8 against him lifetime?
We won 2 games against that guy.
Jay Soul, you need to drink some Roulade.
That's exactly it. Wake up.
I drank a little too much Roulade last year. I want to see it happen.
You picked 6-6 last year. You were ready to fire Rule after the first game of the season.
You can't get me going if you're not going to win the first game of the year. That's the only game that matters is the first game of the year.
Listen, the season hasn't even started. You picked us to go 6-6. You picked a loss against Illinois. And then this next week here, we're all sitting 4-0. You're sitting 3-1. And then you're picking a loss in West Lafayette to the worst team in the Big Ten this year.
Jeez.
Man, he's really
I did not pick a loss to Purdue. I did not pick a loss to Purdue.
You did pick a loss at Purdue.
No, I picked a loss against Illinois.
You picked a loss against Illinois, and then you picked a loss against Purdue.
Then who's my 6th win there, B-Saw?
Iowa.
You picked Nebraska and Indiana as wins, and then Iowa at the end of the season.
I did not pick Iowa as a win at the end of the season there,
Yeah,
you did. You can go back and listen to the tape.
I will have to because I did not pick Iowa as a win there, B-Saw.
Yes, you did. I remember it. You were arguing with me about it.
Yes, because T-Cell picked Iowa as a loss because that was the win for Iowa to take him to the Big Ten championship, which is a whole nother joke. And we'll get into that a little bit later here. BSchneid, do you agree with J-Cell on this trip to West Lafayette costing the Huskers a win?
Okay, J-Cell. I see where you're going off of Nebraska and obviously college football, you can lose any game you play. But Rule last year beat both those teams with a less talented team. So I just don't see how it would happen. The only thing I could see is it's an 11 a.m. kick in West Lafayette. And Nebraska could be kind of high and on themselves and low cocky. And college football is going to be like, they got Dylan Raiola. They finally got a quarterback. The black shirts are legit. So I could see it being a slow start for that game. But no, Nebraska is going to be 5-0 after we play Purdue. No doubt about that.
I completely agree. And T-Cell did as well. And, across the panel here, I assume, even though you're kind of on the same page that Rutgers or Colorado team is probably going to be the best one we've played up to this point, how do you see the Huskers faring against Rutgers when they come to town?
I think Rutgers is going to be, we'll have to wait and see how the first couple weeks go. I see Rutgers, like Jason was saying, they're going to be one of the better defenses Nebraska plays on the football season. And Schiano is a great coach. He really is. I see this game being where Raiola is going to struggle. I see this could be a game where he throws a couple interceptions early on. He's going to have to really find out how to settle in. I think at halftime, Nebraska could be trailing. And of course, they're in Memorial Stadium, but it's going to be a struggle in the first half. But I think the second half, Nebraska is they're going to prove what they've kind of proven from the start of the year as this new cultured team, that they find ways to win. It's a totally 180 flip. And Nebraska's going to pull away. It's going to be a tight one, and it's going to almost be a little scary, but Nebraska's going to find a way to win in the fourth quarter by ground and pound football and a few pass plays here and there, and defense getting a turnover when it matters.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're all kind of on the same page. I think Schiano's going to have this Rutgers team believe in. I think if Nebraska stumbles or struggles against a couple of the teams early on in the season, I think this Rutgers game could easily be flipped to a loss if they're not buying in or not believing in themselves. I think coming 5-0 into this game against Rutgers, I think they're going to be on such a high that I don't think Rutgers is going to be able to hang with them, especially being at home. Chances are it's probably going to be a later kick. They're not going to give us an 11 a.m. kick against Rutgers. They'll probably give us a 2:30 or a 7 o'clock game. So I think that Husker team's going to be ready to play.
Yeah, I'm there with you, BSchneid. I think Rutgers could be a tough team, but ultimately we're going to be 5-0. We're sniffing that 6th win. It's homecoming. Perfect game for homecoming. We're not losing that game at home. And then we jump next game at Indiana. Who do you got there, BSchneid?
Yeah, I've been sipping on this throughout the podcast. If you guys are listening on your podcast, whatever platform you're listening on, or I'll watch on YouTube, and want one of these Yetis has a Sully scoop on there, go to their website and get one. They're sweet. I use it all the time, and it's 100 degrees out in the summer, and my drink stays cold, so it's sweet. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, Indiana, they got the coach from James Madison, who had a really successful year, first year in FBS. So Indiana, I think, will be an improved team, but I don't see Indiana. I mean, they're going to be getting beat down, playing a lot of these tough teams they have to play. I haven't even looked at Indiana's schedule, but they'll be playing in Michigan or Ohio State or something, Oregon, Washington. Nebraska's going to go in there and win. So that puts them at 6-0, I believe. So we're bowl eligible. So I got Nebraska 6-0.
That's exactly it. Or
that would be 7-0.
That puts us at 7-0 against Indiana.
Yeah, the Rutgers game gets us.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nebraska.
So we're bowl eligible at
Game day is going to
homecoming.
Columbus. Game day is in Columbus.
Oh,
Now-
absolutely. And I think Indiana is the worst team the Huskers will be playing all year. I think Indiana is going to be the worst team in the Big Ten this year.
J-Cell, I had your back. I had your note that you had Indiana as the worst team. I've got the other Indiana team as the worst team in the Big Ten. But I think it's important here to note, T-Cell picked Indiana as a trap game. He thinks that's going to be the Huskers' first blemish on the season, is a loss in Indiana. T-Cell, care to explain yourself?
Yeah, well, here's the thought process, all right? It is a road game.
Losing to J-Cell's worst team in the Big Ten.
Well,
that's the
Jason
thought
doesn't know what
process.
he's talking about. I mean, that's the thought process there. He doesn't know what he's talking about. All right.
This is a hot take.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. after we get that 6th win against Rutgers at home, we're celebrating like we just won the Super Bowl. And I think we're going to be a little hungover playing at Indiana. I tell you, best case scenario, it's a dogfight and we pull it out. That's what I'm saying. Best case scenario.
You don't think Matt Rule's got that his team ready to be like, hey, we win this game, we get college game day in Columbus, so
I think you get game day in Columbus either way, even if you lose at Indiana. But
Now,
I think that he knows what he's doing. He has the reins. He's ready. Like, hey, the season's only half over. We're 6-0. There's a lot to do. But the fact that it's just been 7 years, no bowl games, I don't think he's going to be able to control these guys. None of these guys have ever seen a bowl game unless they transferred in from a program that had it.
Now, T-Cell, you also forgot to mention your thought process behind this. Is he thinks a loss to Indiana will make Ohio State not take us seriously, that the next week in the horseshoe, the Huskers will pull off an upset. I don't tend to agree with him there, but that was his thought process, was like we could psych them out. We could take the loss to Indiana and then beat Ohio State.
I could somewhat see that. I really could.
Now, can you see Matt Rule playing mind games like that with Ryan Day? Like, hey, guys, go out and just absolutely tank against Indiana.
No.
And next week, we're going to lay it all on the table against Ohio State.
Well, Scott Frost got fired
Scott
a couple
Frost
years
probably.
ago. Yeah. No, I actually think you got a fair idea for a fantasy that could happen. I just don't see us losing to Indiana, though. But I could, if we did lay an egg there, I could see Ohio State overlooking us just like we overlooked Indiana. So that's a good point.
Who do you got in your Ohio State matchup there, BSchneid?
Okay. Yeah, I know I'm being the homer here, the Nebraska born and
Love to
raised.
hear it.
But so I see this game being a game day game. But at this point, some key guys might be injured. I mean, you're over halfway through the season. And hopefully we get the NBC night game and not the big noon Fox kickoff. Yeah. That's but I see this game being Nebraska being down a few scores in the fourth. But I really think that this is my prediction. And as crazy as it sounds, I think Nebraska goes down 7 with about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and they get the ball back. They have about 2 minutes left. 2-minute drill. It's Raiola's first time doing a 10-minute drill down like this. And I think Nebraska finds a way. They get in the red zone, and it's 3rd and 10, around 20 seconds left. And it's going to be kind of like that scene from when Zach Taylor threw that ball against Texas A&M and Purify caught it in the end zone. I think Jamal Banks is going to go up there and snag it. And I think Nebraska's going to go for 2 and get it. So I think Nebraska gets it out of there and squeeze away because Ohio State is going to still make the playoff. But I think they pull off the upset. So I got us rolling.
Me too. And let's also not forget the fact that Nebraska is sandwiched between Oregon and Penn State on Ohio State's schedule.
Yes, T-Cell, but they are coming off a bye week after they lose to Oregon.
Doesn't matter. They on their bye, they just watched us lose to Indiana. So at that point, they're like, let's think
Ohio
about
State
Penn State
beats Oregon.
Point.
I don't know about that. It's a true road game. They're on the road in Eugene. I think Oregon wins.
BSol predicted that Oregon isn't losing a game this season, and they're winning the national championship. That's what
I never said national championship, but I do think Oregon.
But they'll be there.
Do you have an Oregon Duck tattoo on your rib?
No, he just placed a couple bets on that apparently.
Goes to casino. Give me 500 on the Ducks.
I mean, when you look at Oregon's schedule, though, their toughest game is Ohio State at
It's
home.
a tough game.
That's I think
It
that's
is a-
They
almost
play
everyone's
Washington. They
toughest game
play
in the Big Ten.
Michigan.
What?
I think
What was
that's
that,
almost
Jason?
everyone's toughest game of the Big Ten. Oh, you pulled Ohio State. That's the toughest game you got.
But like, it would be a completely different story if Jim Harbaugh was still at Michigan. They play on the road at Michigan.
Also tough
That could be Michigan's gonna be not as good as they were the last couple of years. They
Not
lost a
even
lot.
against
A lot of
Harbaugh. If
talent.
Jim Harbaugh was still there, it still wouldn't matter. They lost their whole team. Their whole roster's gone. What, they got Donovan Edwards with no offensive line.
Well, their
Sorry
to
defense
break
don't
it
know
to
the
you.
plays now.
Sorry to break it to
Correct.
you guys. They're still a 10-win
So-
ball club. I guarantee it.
No,
Oh,
they
I
okay,
agree.
yeah.
Michigan's going to win 9-10 games this year. Absolutely.
Yeah, so even if they win 9-10
8-4.
games, they're not going to beat Oregon. That's
8-4, they're having a
I think this
drop-off.
Oregon game. I think this Oregon team is returning enough talent there to really run the table in the Big Ten schedule that they got.
I think you're giving Oregon too much credit here, B. So what does Oregon prove? Nothing. I can't remember. Did they win
Oregon
the
always
Pac-12?
loses a game. They're always about 6-7-0, and then they drop a game.
Yep. They never
And-
do anything.
And if they're gonna, I mean, but when you look at their season here and their schedule, Idaho win, Boise State win,
Hold up
Oregon
a second.
State.
You just already had this pulled up, or is this your screensaver on your computer?
I pulled it up a second ago when we were
Got it
talking about it.
memorized, baby.
You got Oregon at Oregon State.
That's a loss.
That's a rivalry
Oregon
game
State
there.
on the road.
At-
Good luck.
At Oregon State is one of the toughest places to play college football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a loss. I think you're early enough in the season there.
You're giving Oregon too much credit, my friend.
I'm not giving Oregon enough credit here, T-Sol. They are bringing back a ton of
12-0.
talent.
12-0.
Then they go on the road. So their Big Ten away game, first one to start the season, on the road, UCLA.
Loss.
Win. UCLA is going to be a terrible program
I'm
this
kidding.
year.
They're gonna beat UCLA.
Then they've got
Michigan.
Michigan State at home. Win. Ohio State at home. I'm telling you, I think they're going to beat Ohio State at home. Then they go on the road to Purdue. Worst team in the
Loss.
Big Ten. That's a win. Then they've got Illinois
Count
coming
that.
to town. Win.
That's an L.
Illinois is not going to be able to keep up with them. Then you go on the road to
Look at
Michigan.
how these
That's
Big Ten teams play.
They play keep away.
They short yard you to death, and then they play the best one's Minnesota.
okay.
They're gonna
They
run
can-
the
they
ball
can
and give you
sh-
3 possessions.
And Oregon will score on all three, and Minnesota will score on one. What's
Yeah.
your point? So they lost 21-7. You just agreed.
I said maybe not. Maybe they don't.
So
score.
then they go on the road to Michigan. And again, I think that's a tough environment to go to, but I think Michigan's going to regress this year. So I'm going to give them a win there. They've got Maryland coming to town, win. Then they're on the road to Wisconsin. That's another tough one there. Again, that Michigan and Wisconsin game, one of them could be their slip up on the season there. But Oregon's going to come out and be the best team in the Big Ten.
hot take, folks.
It's not a hot take there.
Boise State. They could very well drop that game too. Start of the year.
I agree. Boise State's not a gimme.
Yeah, they'll beat UCLA, but I don't know. I could see them being undefeated going into Ohio State. They probably will be. They should be 5-0.
If
But-
they plan on competing in the Big Ten, they have to be 5-0. I mean,
I
if
gotta-
they drop a game or two, they're in trouble.
I got a question for B Soul. So if I invite you to our online dynasty and the new college football video game, and we all choose scrub group of 5 programs to rebuild, and then you choose Oregon, what are we gonna do about that?
I wouldn't choose Oregon to rebuild. I'm more of a Western Kentucky team to start.
Western Kentucky. Okay, that's respectable.
Gotta love the Hilltoppers.
Absolutely.
Well, bring it up. Oregon playing UCLA. We also have the Huskers welcoming UCLA into the Big Ten in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, and unfortunately, UCLA's fan base doesn't travel. Obviously, they don't even show up to their home games, so you won't even the Californians won't even come here to party. You won't see the California girls, but Nebraska, they got or UCLA's got the new head coach, and they lost a lot of guys. I think the culture is kind of broken, or maybe not though. I mean, he was on the staff under Chip Kelly, but I think Nebraska gets another win, and I think that puts them in their second bye of the year, if I'm correct. So then they'll be going to USC.
Yes, we play UCLA and then get the bye week, and then we're on the road at USC.
Yeah.
Which it would have just been more convenient. You should have just let us play UCLA on the road, given us the bye week. We could have just spent 2 weeks in California. Team would have enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah. Did you guys all pick us to beat UCLA?
I am the only one besides you here right now who picked us to beat UCLA.
Really?
Yes.
I'm interested to
J-Cell
see-
thinks after J-Cell thinks after from Ohio State, we're gonna go on a 4-game skid. T-Cell thinks we'll lose
And
to
he's
UCLA.
not calling for the coach's head.
Well, these are the
Tease-
best 4 teams they play all season. The end of the season is the best part of the schedule. The best, that
Not
is
taken
what
away
gives
from
the
it,
schedule
but
depth.
But this UCLA team is the worst team left on the schedule, and I think Nebraska beats them.
I disagree with that.
Who do you
I
say
think
the
Iowa
worst team?
is the worst team.
Well, they were just in a Big Ten
You would-
championship. so
you
that
would
might
have
be
somebody
beginning.
They
here
were
who
in a
disagrees
Big
with
Ten
you.
championship with every other team was tied going into the second to last week of the season, and everyone had a negative schedule or a negative record.
Now, J-Cell, you got to remember, T-Cell has Iowa going back to the Big Ten championship this season, so you're going to have to give him some slack here because
He doesn't even know that there isn't sides anymore.
Did you look at their schedule by chance there, Jason?
Have you
Because the
seen
Big
their
Ten just
offense there,
handed them
T-Cell?
an easy
You
schedule.
got to score points to beat some of these teams.
They don't.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves talking about Iowa football, which is always the worst part of the season, let's get into Nebraska on the road at USC. BSchneid, how do you feel about that one?
All right. This is where Nebraska loses their game.
I tend to agree with you. I think going on the road, playing at USC, it's going to be, again, temperature is going to be a factor, time of day, it's going to be, and it just throws off the whole routine there. I will say T-Cell picked this game as a win, though, as everybody else has it as a loss. So
I got
Kinda like that-
UCLA or USC is a scary bad team this year.
I could see that. What I think is going to happen is Nebraska. This is where they're really going to be. They're by then they'd probably be a top 10, top 5 team with the record I have. Which God, I hope we all be happy. But I think they're going to get in there. It's going to be that 9:00 Central kickoff, Big Ten After Dark now, and this is the one game where the black shirts are they're gonna be off, and Lincoln Riley's offense is gonna put up points against us, and it's gonna not look like the black shirts we've been seeing from last year, and then this year that they put together. And I think that's going to kill them. Rayola's going to have a good game put on numbers because USC's defense doesn't do anything. So really good day for the offense, but I see us losing in a shootout.
yeah, it's going to be a track meet there for sure.
Could be.
But after a trip down to Southern California, we've got the Badgers coming to town, coming to Lincoln. How do you feel we'll fare against Wisconsin?
Well, Wisconsin probably has been the most painful team to play against since joining the Big Ten. Nebraska hasn't they beat them once, they beat them once since joining the Big Ten in 2012, and then got killed by them in the championship that same year. But this is the year we finally beat them, and that put us at 10-1 going in Iowa. I think it'll be a tough game. It's going to be a cold November game. I think Wisconsin's, and they've kind of been this way. They're another 6-6 year for them or so. But I think it'll be a tough, cold November football game. And Nebraska's going to they're going to be pissed off about last week. The defense let the offense down. And that's where I see Nebraska, their defense taking over, and we win in a close game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think this Wisconsin game is going to come down to Nebraska's ability to run the ball and control the clock. I think, again, like you said, Wisconsin's kind of had our number since joining the Big Ten. And I would love for us to get over the hump, but until we do it, it's just one of those things. This is one of my 3 losses I have on the season there. I gotta see it to believe it. And it's been constant disappointment. I mean, we've been in the driver's seat so many times against these guys and just have lost at the end, whether it's letting Wisconsin control the second half of the game or us just not taking advantage and capitalizing on good opportunities that we've had.
Well, and just think about last year too. We were up by what, 3 touchdowns after the first half ended? Something ridiculous.
Yeah,
I think
and then
they're up 17 to what, 3 or something?
Yeah,
Something
and
like
stupid
that.
Will Pauling has the best game of his career. And the worst part is he's back.
Yeah, but he's not going to save them this year. I don't think there's going to be many people saving him against Nebraska this year.
So you've got us 10-1 after beating Wisconsin. How do you feel about that road game to Iowa City against probably the worst offense in the Big Ten that somehow figures out how to get it done still?
This will be sweet this year. The primetime game on Black Friday. I'm really excited about that. And it's fitting for the game. Nebraska and Iowa has really became a good rivalry between fan bases and the players, and it means something to them. I think it's a rivalry game. It's going to be a close game no matter if Nebraska's 0-11 or Iowa's 0-11 at the point. It's going to be a close game. And I think Nebraska once again finds a way to win and beat Iowa because Nebraska has something Iowa doesn't, and that's a quarterback. And that quarterback is going to be the big difference. I think by this time, God willing, that Rail is healthy. He's comfortable. He knows what to do. He's played in the big moment, and he takes care of business and makes some clutch throws to put us over Iowa. So I got us 11-1 in the Big Ten championship.
Love to hear it.
Now, speaking of that, so 11-1, huge. Love to see it. You know, I'm really hoping they put it together. I think you're maybe 1 year early on getting to 11-1, but I'm at 9-3, so I'm not that far off. If a couple possessions go the other way there, I'm right there with you. You've got Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. Who do you got them playing, and who do you have winning?
So Ohio State drops another one to Michigan, and they finished 10-2. And Oregon, their only loss was Ohio State. So I have Nebraska playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship, and I have Oregon beating Nebraska. Solid game, but Nebraska gets beat. Just hands down beat on the field. And then I got Nebraska in the college football playoff hosting against Callan DeBoer in the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Nebraska, it's the best atmosphere Nebraska ever had. It's going to be a cool game in December. And I think they end off the season losing that game. So I got Nebraska at 11-3 overall. But I'd be really happy with it if that was what transpired. But
I would love that.
If Nebraska makes the college football playoffs, I think everybody will classify the season as a success, regardless of how it ends.
Oh, absolutely.
If Nebraska makes a bowl game, I think it's a success at this point. We've seen 7 years of treacherous football go on.
I still don't think a 6-6 would be a success. If we go 6-6, I don't think I'm going to be happy about it.
I agree.
At this point, I think you're playing for 8 wins.
At least 7. 7.
Yeah.
7 is a
7
must.
in like 2 games that were like completely BS, and we're talking about it all off season about how we got screwed. Like that
just
freaking Michigan State game 2 years ago where we punted and the guy just skipped into the end zone. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
it's just another one of the off seasons to crown as an off-season national champ, if that's how it goes there, T-Saw.
If Nebraska doesn't make a bowl game, say goodbye to the sellout streak, say goodbye to a lot of things.
Yes.
And that's just
I
the
would-
truth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this is really the last hurrah and last opportunity that they really have to. If they make a bowl game, I think people still have some hope. I think, however, the fan base is getting fed up with the mediocrity that's being trotted out. This isn't Iowa, this isn't Minnesota, this isn't Illinois. We're not okay with 6 wins. We're not okay with 4 wins. We're not okay with just showing up and having a good time. We believe in championship football. We believe in wins. We believe in, trotting out the best players out there and really just manhandling teams. And we haven't seen that in years.
Yep, because they chose money. They chose money leaving the Big 12 or the Big 10, and it cost us watching good football on TV.
Well, I don't know. I agree with you guys though. With watching a year of Matt Rule and everything, I think that the floor is definitely 6, but I could see him somehow going 4-8 as a, Nebraska's proven they're a consistent 4-8, 5-7 football team, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
because like when I make that record prediction, there will probably be a game in there. I'm sure, but there'll be a game in there like, let's say a Purdue, well, maybe not, but a UCLA that they should win, but they don't. So I could see them anywhere from that 7-5 to 11-1 range. I really could, and it being just minimal from plays. I mean, they were about a 9-3 team last year, so but coulda, shoulda, woulda,
Yeah,
No.
that final stretch, we should have won all those games. Or I guess we could have won all of those games, I guess is the correct terminology.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So after an 11-1 season, I feel like I know the answer here. We're just going to get your take on your top offensive and defensive player for the Husker, their MVP for each side of the ball. Offensive side, I assume you're following suit, but I want to hear it from your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Rayola is going to be our MVP. I mean, that was our problem last year, and we finally got a quarterback, hands down.
That's as J-Cell said when Rayola had originally announced his commitment to Georgia, he didn't want to be the guy to put a program back on the map. He changed his mind. He came here. He followed his heart, came home, and he's going to be a kid who comes in and really changes the trajectory of the program. On the defensive side of the ball, I am curious to hear who you have. If you're going to follow suit with T-Cell, J-Cell, and Chazzy, or if you're going to branch out on your own as well.
My defensive most valuable player is actually so the defensive line, I think, is the strength of the defense, even though the secondary can be argued pretty well too. But I think the most valuable player, and I don't think statistically you will see many interceptions, but I think Tommy Hill is going to be the most valuable player on the defensive side because that is the one spot at defensive back that there's some questions. Losing Bly Hill, we don't know if he's going to be healthy in the fall. Hartzog kind of was up and down last year, and they've talked about him being a safety, but he might play corner again. But Hill proved last year that he is a potential all Big Ten defensive back. So I think that statistic-wise, he won't be probably the best on the team, but I think he'll be the most valuable player.
Yeah, he's my wild card on the season. He's the guy I'm intrigued most about because you don't know what his ceiling is. You don't know where he's going to end up.
I like the pick for Tommy Hill. I actually picked Bly Hill, assuming he's healthy, is my defensive MVP. I think he jumps off jumps off the screen. I think everything coming out of camp going into spring camp there was the two Hills were going to make a strong impact there. And I think most of the Big Ten teams know what Tommy can do, that they were going to give Bly Hill a lot of opportunities there. So that was my pick. However, if unfortunately he doesn't play because of the injuries, I did say John Bullock would be my backup there. I think filling in at the middle linebacker spot, Bullock played very well last year with his limited time replacing guys who were injured, but I think Bullock would take a very big step forward this year.
I I could agree with the John Bullock thing because of the loss of Luke Reimer and Nick Henrich. That's
Yeah.
I thought about picking John Bullock, but who did Teasel and Jace have?
They picked Nash, the polar bear.
And that's a great pick too. I mean, any of them can be argued. It's a good problem to have on the defensive side. I mean, offense we're
front
banking on
seven
our quarterback, but which everybody normally will pick him. But yeah, I mean, the defense is exciting because you got so many guys that can be game changers.
And enough guys who will be able to switch in and keep everybody fresh too. I mean, that front seven is going to be nasty this year.
Absolutely.
Is there any hot takes you have going for the year that you want to throw on the table at this point, other than the Huskers taking down Ohio State, which I would classify as a hot take at this point?
And getting in the playoff.
I know. I'm sure someone wants to drug test me after taking that one, but I'm completely sober for that. But I really, my hot takes are that Emmett Johnson is the featured running back. Jalen Lloyd is our leading receiver because they're going to key on Jamal Banks mostly. And I think Jalen Lloyd has talent. And then also, seeing on the offensive side, Thomas Fidone takes another huge step. Heinrich Harburg plays 20-some snaps at tight end a game. And our offensive line is solid. Teddy Prochaska takes another big step. Bryce Benhart is solid. And then on the defensive side, I'd say a hot take I'd have would be that Nash Hutmacher and Ty Robinson combined for 22 sacks.
And since you got us in the playoff, I'm just throwing a random one out here, BSchneid. Do you have anybody on our team make as an All-American?
Yes, I have Nash and Ty. Going off of that. And I have Raiola as I'm going to have Raiola as a second team All Big Ten quarterback behind Dylan Gabriel of Oregon. And I think Dylan Raiola is an All-American quarterback. I think hand in hand he does. And I think Jalen Lloyd is going to get some accolades. I really do. I think Jalen Lloyd is I think he's going to be our best receiver on the team. I'm really high on him. As long as he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Being a little undersized.
I could see Raiola being like freshman All-American because he is a freshman. He's going to play a lot, so he definitely could make that.
I just hope we all aren't stupid and then they trot out Harburg for the first snap against UTEP, which I don't see that happening. But I mean, the crowd's going to boo, which I won't, but like I'm going to trust in the coach, but it's not everybody's going to be waiting for number 15 or trot on the field.
Yep.
But no, it's exciting. I mean, another year of a lot of optimism, and Nebraskans can't take another letdown. They just need to get some wins. And I mean, Jay Soul is a realist in a lot of that, his predictions of 6-6. I just see the potential of being 8-4 to 11-1 easily. And that's
yeah,
I wish you just
I wish you left me some of the roulade out there, but the barrels have run dry before I got there, so that's why I picked them 6-6. I got to see it to believe it, and with what I've seen from the past 7 years of the Huskers, I have a feeling they will find a way to lose a game, and until they can get over that hump and start turning those 3-point losses into wins, I can't get behind them and pick them 11-1 to 8-4 just yet. I think 6-6 could be a stretch if we'll know that by game 4 in the year. However, I think it's got to be done. You got to make a bowl game to see the next jump into the next level because that gets you extra practices for your young guys.
Yeah, no, I mean you're going off the book, which I totally understand. Nope, this is the year we shock the world. Football gods have punished us. It's time for us to get back to where the glory is.
I would love to see that. But I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of the Sully Scoop. You're here with Jaso,
BSchneid,
and T-Saw.
And we want to give a special thanks to BSchneid for jumping on and joining us and giving us his season predictions along with a few hot takes going that we will be tracking throughout the year and be bringing him back on to go through them throughout the year. However, BSchneid, where can we catch you at and where can we follow your content that's going to be being pushed out throughout the season?
Yeah, so I'm going to be continuing my podcast. Big Red with BSchneid is what it's called. It's through the UNL KRNU radio, but it's on their website. It's on Spotify, YouTube. I have pages on Twitter and Instagram. If you just go to Big Red with BSchneid, I'm on there. And then I'm going to be having my articles I'll be sharing to my pages and stuff. And look to be having some more guests on for my shows and stuff throughout the year and everything. So should be, as long as you look up Big Red BSchneid or on Adam Carricker's website, should be able to find me there. So yeah, look forward to coming back on with you guys and staying in touch and seeing you guys at a game this year. That'll be sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys again for having me on. It's always fun coming on here. I enjoy always listening to you guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.